He is Martinsville, Virginia's finest, Bink Ingram,
Oh boy.
and I am Denver, Colorado's own Skip Patterson. Welcome to Skip to the Truth.
Oh my gosh.
What's going
Man,
on
it's
with you,
good to
man?
be back. Bro, it's good to be back in the camp.
Yeah, no
Oh,
doubt.
it's good
no
to be
doubt.
back in the camp.
It
bro.
is,
I
man.
swear.
It is. It is. It is. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah,
when was the
man.
last one? When was the last one, bro? I feel like it's been a year, maybe or so, man. Maybe a little
if
longer.
not more. If not more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
much has happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. So
Yeah.
what's going on, man? What's on your mind?
Well, all kinds of stuff. All
Yeah.
kinds of stuff, bro. Where you want to start? You
You tell
want to
me,
start
man.
political? Oh
I,
my gosh.
hey, let's
So much has happened.
whatever's on your
Well,
mind. Let's.
I was thinking about it as we were getting stuff hooked up and turned on for the first time and well over a
Yeah,
year.
it's been a minute. It's been a minute.
Yes, lots happened. I don't know if I shared with you. My dad passed.
Yeah. That was.
Yeah, and I'm still recovering from that. Trying to get my mom's house sold and all that.
Oh, okay.
It's just
Okay. A lot
that
going
whole
on.
process of
Yeah.
unwinding 58 years of marriage between those two, and got my my youngest is in Hampton.
Congratulations,
Bro,
man.
it's coming at me fast, brother.
Congratulations. Yeah. So you
Yeah.
have an empty nest.
I'm an empty nester,
How
and
you enjoying it?
bro, it was harder than I thought.
Yeah.
Oh man, it was hard, bro. Oh
Okay.
man, it was hard.
Okay.
Oh, bro, everybody talks all this stuff, man. I mean, either they're lying or they're just lying, because we got back to the house, right, and it was just quiet. Just I, I didn't know what to do, bro, and it hit my lady hard, hit my wifey hard, bro, and so fortunately, our youngest Sarah, she stays in contact with us all the time, FaceTime and all that, so that's been really helpful, especially for my lady,
Okay.
and and back in the schoolhouse, brother.
Yeah.
Of course, and they laid me out with a whole man. I'm teaching 5 different preps. So so it's the same old, bro. It just keeps coming. Yeah, it just keeps coming. It just keeps coming, bro.
Wow.
so
Okay.
so so
I'll
so
just
so
in
that's that's
passing
that's
mention
that's
I
the
just
latest
have
and greatest.
in passing I'll just say I have one, and and we'll move right on because I don't want you to jump on me.
Oh
Yeah,
my
in passing.
gosh.
Yeah. Oh man, 5.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, man. I'm doing the AP Psych,
Okay.
Soc,
Okay.
and Human Geo, and then they asked me to do the generalized, the semesterized
Mm.
courses, which are general courses in Psych and Soc. So, man, I'm gonna tell you that Psych class, man, is an eye opener. I don't know who's enjoying that class more, me or the or the students.
Oh,
Man, that
okay.
that
Okay.
so hopefully we can get into some of that, and when so with some of the stuff we've been seeing from like the Mark Robinsons of the world. Oh my gosh.
Oh, man, well,
But
go ahead
what,
and kick us off, man, in our hour. Our hour. Go ahead. Go
well, yeah,
ahead.
Mark Robinson, Lieutenant Governor of North Carolina, in the gubernatorial race as we speak. Again, I think against Mr. Stein. I think that's his name. That's the on the top of the Democratic ticket
Man, I
for
haven't kept
governor
up with
in
it,
North
so I'm
Carolina.
all ears. Yeah.
Yeah, bro. Okay. Um, Um, I he's one of those persons that makes me want to try to figure out, is there a difference between MAGA conservatives and conservatives? I mean, because here's a brother that says that he's upset that um, the KKK doesn't accept black people. And he went on to suggest that if they did, he would call Martin Luther King Martin Lucifer Coon. So this is the kind of vitriol that this guy is being able to get away with in large part. And I say get away with because he's the current lieutenant governor of North Carolina in the gubernatorial race to take the big chair. So and he said more outrageous things than that, but I'm just wondering what direction is this so-called conservatism going? And I have questions about this whole question of what liberals are doing in this country too. Um, and I put it in that context because um, I'm glad we're back on because I want to talk to young people and students out there who you're just looking for some doggone clarity and truth, bro, which is the reason why we started this thing in the first place.
Mhm.
And I just want to speak to them and let them know that there's a voice out there. We're still here, but there's some stuff out there that's got our kids asking all manner of questions, brother. Um, um, we need to turn our mics back on, guy. I think we need to deal with not only the Mark Robinsons of the world, um, but the Byron Donalds of the world, who suggested, you may have already heard, that black
Mhm.
families were in better shape during the Jim Crow era than they are today. So it, they cherry pick history in such a way
Yeah, that's a good
where
way of putting it. Yeah. Hmm.
yeah, and
Yeah.
kids are like, what?
Hmm. Hmm.
And and you and I both know that U.S. history in middle schools is poorly taught, right? There's no real context for this stuff anymore. It's just I'm not sure what's going on, but yeah, man. So, but those two characters really got my attention. I said, now, you know what? Let me grab Skip one more time and let's rattle this cage, brother, because this is
Yeah.
crazy, bro.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
can't let these jokers get away with this, bro. No, it's just we just can't do it, man. Can't do it. Can't do it, man. I just couldn't sit on the sidelines another day and not put something in the ether, something in the in cyberspace that says no, enough. Black folk are getting tired of black folk pimping us for their own profit. And these dudes, bro, I mean, Byron Donald and Mark Robinson are at the top of
Hmm.
my list, bro. That because you remember once upon a time, for me it was Stephen A. Smith, and who was that other sports journalist that I just had it in
Oh,
for?
Whitlock.
Oh yeah, Jason
Yeah. Yeah.
Whitlock, that
Whitlock.
dog, bro. I had it, bro.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
these
yeah.
two
You
dudes
probably
right here,
still do.
man.
Yeah, yeah. But from the sounds of what you're telling me with these two uh,
Brother,
clowns,
I said,
that's
man,
what the word that comes up for me is clown, based on what you're telling
yeah,
me that they're
man.
coming with.
Yeah, man, you got to hear these dudes, man. I just and he literally
I,
said, bro, watch this, watch this, watch this, watch this. But and he describes himself about 30 years ago. Um, he was allegedly, according to CNN, a frequent visitor to the porn site called Nude Africa, and in there was a forum where viewers could post their thoughts, and in there he posted that he was a black Nazi. Bro, I was like, and then the CNN grabs this his handle, which is attached to his email, which he
Mm.
was using for every social platform that he was affiliated with, from Facebook to um, you name it. But he was using them all for all those different platforms. So apparently, some investigative reporter from CNN or something was able to zero that handle to his email address. And so CNN broke the story about all this nonsense that he's been saying in this chat forum in this porn site called Nude Africa. Brother.
So what do you think is the explanation for this, man? What do you want to?
It has
Yeah, go ahead.
the desire for power, prestige, perhaps even wealth, push some black folk to this point. And do these two gentlemen represent someone that Harriet Tubman would deal with in a very permanent way?
Yes, yes to that second part. Miss Harriet Tubman, Mother Harriet Tubman, would most definitely have dealt with both of them in a very permanent way. So yeah, that's my answer to that part of the question. And look, let me ask you this. I would say the answer to the question, to your first question about has money, prestige, etc., pushed people, in particular these two, to engage in their antics on one side of the political spectrum. Are they catching up with the influence that money, power, and prestige has had on some other folk to do things that are not expressively the same thing, but substantively the same things in terms of their silliness, evil, negativity, detrimental impact, but just on another spectrum? And that we've seen happen for a long time in music and entertainment. That's been something that has been a pursuit for many idiots and clowns and etc. In the name of prestige and power and influence to do things that are also base and negative. And it seems that perhaps politicians have gone Hollywood in the post and current Trump era. We're just seeing guys do and gals do absolutely ridiculous carry on ridiculous antics because perhaps Trump has made that fashionable. And you're seeing just the wildest rhetoric, the most just ridiculous, not to beat that word into the ground, but that's just what it seems like, to the point where I know I'm standing on the outside looking in, and to me, Mark Robinson and what's the name of the other guy you talk about?
Byron Donald.
Yeah. For me, these dudes aren't even, I'm not going to give them a second thought, but that's me looking on the outside in and being in a place by God's grace where I see that for what it is. But I know I feel where you're coming from, in that there are people who, and probably a lot of people who do not understand that this is a clown show, and they believe and support and vote and subscribe to for these people, and then take on what they're saying with some seriousness. And like you say, that does make what we're doing now and a worthwhile cause to try to skip to the truth on that and call it what it is. So yeah, I'm with you on that, man. I'm completely with you on that. We got let me see here, WGN. She says
Oh
Minstrels.
yeah,
Absolutely. The minstrel
agreed.
shows have been around for a long time. And
Oh
I
my
think that's what
gosh,
we're seeing. Yep. 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 That's
these
that's
these are
that's what we're
like
seeing.
these are like black folk in blackface. If that makes any sense at all,
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, it makes perfect sense. That's a great characterization of it. That's what I think it is. That's what I think it is. And who were the that was supposed to entertain a certain segment? You know, the
Right.
minstrel shows are supposed to entertain a certain crowd, and we've seen
Yeah.
the minstrel show just pick up
Mhm.
and get transported into politics and entertainment and etc. for entertainment. And what comes with that
Yeah.
is the money, power, influence, and all those trappings. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
right there with you on that.
Yeah. Yeah.
WG says, "How
Sad
you going to bring
commentary.
up Harriet's tactics?" Well, sometimes,
Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute,
sometimes
wait a
that's
minute.
needed.
Well, let me quote.
Let me
Let
not
me
before
just
before
do
yeah,
it.
yeah yeah. We call it Harriet's tactics. We don't want to call it by name because we don't want to get censored like happened in the past. So yeah, but
well, 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 Mr. Um, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson was recorded and actually saying from behind a pulpit, bro, a pulpit. And he says, while he's pulling up his belt, some people just need killing. And he literally said that. He literally said that. And it was reported on CNN, ABC, you name it. Even Fox played it. And so it was just incredible what he's been able to get away with
yeah.
as the lieutenant governor of, North Carolina. It's just sad that there is no quote unquote censorship, I guess, on that kind of language. And it's just all over the place, bro.
Hmm.
It's all over the place. This dude is truly bananas, truly bananas. And he's the lieutenant governor of North Carolina. Go figure.
Yeah, yeah, and
Eh,
and I would just add to that he has a what would seem to be a relatively large constituency, at least enough in the
Yeah,
state of North Carolina to make him competitive in this race that actually
yeah,
enjoys hearing him say these things and will support
it's
and
incredible.
and want him to lead them politically with these by saying these things and with these attitudes and that's
Yeah. And he goes on. He just rants and rants and
mm-hmm.
rants, and he said more horrible things in that obviously I won't repeat because
Mm-hmm.
again, I don't want his words coming out of my face
Right.
cause us to be thrown out of here. But um, but it's well known that he said this. It's well documented,
Right.
and the silence, in my opinion, from the Republican Party themselves, who endorsed him. Hey, bro, Donald Trump looked into the camera and spoke into the mic. I can't remember where, but just staring in the camera and said that Mark Robinson was Martin Luther King, and I quote, times two. And he says this at one of his rallies. And the guy Robinson just takes these accolades and then is found saying that he would describe Martin Luther King as Martin Lucifer Coon. So on one hand you have Donald Trump saying that he's two times the Martin Luther King. And then at the same time, the man that's getting these accolades and receiving these accolades and pats on the back is the very person that's trashing the memory and legacy of Martin Luther King himself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just crazy irony, for lack of a better word, at the moment.
Man, I think that Mark Robinson, Donald Trump, and anyone else of their ilk are the last hope, and really not a hope at all, but it's just in a real sense, but represent the hope for a great number of people that is getting smaller and smaller by the day that
Yeah.
are living in
Yeah.
absolute fear.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and because they are living in absolute fear, they are willing to try anything and accept anything just because they believe that they are on the verge of extinction and that their survival, they're so desperate for survival that whatever may seem to be able to help them, even though it is ridiculous, even though it's evil, even though it's absolutely absurd, they're willing to give it a chance and support it because they are living in that much fear. And
Yeah.
what I mean is this reality that there's going to be a majority that will soon become a minority, the traditional majority demographic in this country that is on the verge of becoming a minority, and that's going to happen. This is not going to stop. The toothpaste is not going to be put back in the tube. Many of that majority are absolutely in fear, and they can't imagine it. They think that their lives are literally in danger, that their way of life is
Yeah.
literally in danger. And because of that fear, they are in the fight or flight mode. And of course, when you're in that mode, you can't think competently. You're just reacting. Your instincts, survival instincts, are kicking in, and somebody throwing you a bone. You may think that that's what's absolutely necessary for you to try to reverse this thing, and it's not going to be reversed. And the best thing is to just accept it, understand that nobody is trying to wipe you off the face of the earth. Nobody wants revenge. People just want to live and prosper in our great country. And that's just what it is. But you have a large segment of the majority that is dwindling and dwindling and dwindling that refuses to accept that because they are under the mindset that there's a reason to be afraid of becoming like the rest of us. And that is the minority. And there's nothing to fear. Nothing to fear. But it's hard to
Yeah.
tell them that because of the history and so much that has gone into conditioning people to think that their ways will be
Yeah.
will be done to them. And I don't think that's the case, but for me, that explains the popularity of a Mark Robinson, of a Donald Trump, of MAGA,
Yeah.
amongst those people. It's just a response to their fear, and that's what that is to me. That's what that is to me.
Yeah.
And they just gonna have to
Yeah.
get over that because
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing anybody on this platform, but just to use a word from the Harris Walls campaign, we're not going back. We're not going back. So that's you are
These
not.
two dudes, bro.
Yeah. This it's no,
Not going back to
no.
that.
Folk are not having
No.
enough kids,
No.
and the 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 folk are coming in and they're having kids, and that's nothing to be fearful of, and that's just things change. Things change.
Yeah.
Things
Yeah.
change. And our Native American brothers and sisters can tell you that. So
You-
things change. So
yeah. Yeah.
hey, so
Oftentimes, and
yeah,
yeah, it's. I just wanted to put that in the airspace and just encourage young people to do their own research, to do their own reading. It is way so crucial. One of the biggest issues that I have with young people at this point in time is that the heavy lifting of the reading and the questioning is just not where it should be at this point, where we need it the most, when we have been asked to distinguish between what's real, what's misinformation, what's disinformation, what's news, what's entertainment news. I mean, how in the world is a 18, 19-year-old going to decipher this stuff without some degree of guidance to help make sense of this stuff. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I do have to be mindful that the climate when we came up is very different from what it is now, and I have
Yeah.
to remember not to take for granted that my sensibilities that were developed in a southern Christian church going family that instilled
Yeah.
in me uh, the
Yeah.
seed that would bloom into my acceptance of Christ as my Savior, and putting all my faith in being built on God. That those sensibilities, which seemed very common and to be taken for granted back in our community back then, that's not the case today. And young people, a lot of young people don't have that foundation, and so they may be vulnerable and are vulnerable to these trappings that we're talking about now. So it comes back here.
There we are.
Okay, got you back. Yeah,
There's something there. Yeah.
yeah.
All right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
man, I
Yeah.
was I was just saying that
Yeah.
I have to remember not to take my upbringing, which was rooted in
Yeah.
the church and a very African American Southern sensibilities from
Yeah.
my family, that I have to be mindful that those are not always the same sensibilities and upbringings of today, as that was sort of taken for granted back then. That you know, all of my
Yeah.
friends, we were brought up the same way. Went to church.
Yeah.
Uh, God was the seeds
Yeah.
of faith were planted in us by our parents and in their own
Yeah.
unique and powerful ways, and through their examples and through their just talking and just the life that we live. And that's not the case today for no, especially not to the degree that it was back then. You have a lot of African American families that really don't have any sense of faith, and
Yeah.
in their, it's nothing that is not being taught, and those seeds are not being
Yeah.
planted. And of course, that's going to mean you are much more likely to be vulnerable to some of the silliness that is being
Yeah.
thrust in front of us today.
Well,
And I do have to be mindful that that's not
mhm.
that's the reality. And so there is a reason to talk about these things publicly, because everybody's not just going to
Yeah.
dismiss it for the clown show that it is, like I do. So yeah, so I definitely receive
Yeah.
what you're saying. Definitely receive what you're saying.
And you're right about the whole question of faith and a faith-based life. Pardon me. Just visiting with different young people and students over the last several years, one of the things I've noticed more than anything else is that these kids just don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
They don't believe,
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's a broad umbrella, right? So, hey, Mr. Ingram, what is it that they don't believe in? Um, Anything or anybody,
Mm-hmm.
for the most part. They feel let down, and they feel left out, um, and and they're in a place where they are lost and they really don't know where to turn, and it's stressful, for them, and to the point where questions is something that they would rather not deal with in terms of asking them. They just don't trust the answer. It's either that or they don't trust the source. And to become and be a place of trust, as an adult in the face of young people is big for me. And I think it should be big for any adult, but unfortunately, that this is not. When you think about, and I think you mentioned it earlier, the fall of so many different stars, and entertainers recently. We don't need to go through the names. I think anybody that's been, walking upright probably understands what's happening in the entertainment industry and this whole question of sex and sex trafficking and things like that. So what does a teenager do
Mm-hmm.
when there's nowhere to turn but something that's in their hand that agrees with them? Um, I call it the algorithmic rabbit hole. Um, and these kids get in that thing and they can, man, they may not ever get out. Um, and so I'm just so glad we back on the mic, and just maybe, um, a kid to search something and
Mm-hmm.
find us in their algorithm. I mean, and that's the whole
Right.
point. I'm telling you the truth, brother. I'm trying to find a way to get into the algorithm. Maybe a kid is searching for some, hey, give me some video content with some girls that telling the truth.
Okay.
Maybe
Okay.
we can show up in the algorithm. You know what I mean? So I think it's important, what we're doing. That man, I get so many requests, from young people to do a podcast and to write something, and says, you know what, I'm halfway there. um, with the podcasting piece, we're here,
Right.
and there's a
Right.
there's a market for it. And I'm not saying market in terms of taking advantage of some kids financially, but there is a want, and need. We are on the right track,
Mm-hmm.
my friend. We on the right track, without a doubt, brother. We on the right track.
So let me ask you this. So how did we get here? And here meaning to the point where there's so many young people, and I'm going to be very specific. How many?
Yeah.
Why to the point where so many young African Americans do
Yeah.
not believe? How did we get here?
Um, um, just from my humble
Right. Yeah.
opinion
Just
is
just
that
your
the
thoughts
the
on it. Yeah.
people, well, the people in their lives don't believe. Um,
Okay.
um, I think believing is contagious. That's why we go to church, and we're in the congregation, and we holding hands, and we crying and praying together. That's part. Believing is a communal thing in a lot of ways, and that translates into your personal life. And if you don't expose these kids, or to different ideas, they're I mean, I just keep referring back to my old psych class. I mean, John Locke used the phrase "tabula rasa," right? The blank slate. I mean, who's writing on our children's blank slate, right? And we need to make sure that we are putting our kids in a place and where there's somebody writing something decent, something faithful on their blank slate. Um, um, but and that's to me that's what's missing. Nobody's writing on the blank slate except TikTok or whatever site they go to, IG or whatever. I'm not knocking those platforms. They are what they are, tools. But we're asking children to manipulate those tools in such a way where they can be okay, and it's not working. And it kind of reminds me of back in the day. You probably remember the old phrase "latchkey
Yeah,
kids." You
yeah.
remember
I
the old
was one.
latchkey
I
kids?
was one. Yeah,
You,
I was one.
you know what I mean, brother? That
Hmm.
was us,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. And our babysitter, for in large part, was a television.
Hmm.
The good thing was that the television had boundaries.
Hmm.
Could you imagine
Hmm.
if television then was television today, much less the web?
Hmm.
So it's only God knows what we would have been exposed to and what have been written on our tabla rasa while our parents are at work, you know, swinging shifts, trying to make a decent living for us all,
Hmm.
and getting us in the church house on Wednesday and Sunday.
Hmm.
so but that's what's missing, brother. There's no pouring into our young people from those who have something to pour into them. And for whatever reason, um, it just seems that there is a shallow pool from which to pull from and pour into these kids. Looks like folks would rather do something else and be somewhere else. Um, so, I mean, there's a teacher shortage for a reason, and counseling and therapy and all manner of things. I mean, I read an article the other day, man, and that in the county of Prince George County, juveniles are being locked up at a higher rate than adults. I mean, what else does there need to be said, right? How is it possible that juveniles are being incarcerated at a higher rate than adults? And I shared that stat with my students before, right? And I'm just like, now, who's really the fool, and who's being taken advantage of here? And eventually they came to the conclusion it's children that's being taken advantage of. When you think about vaping, for example, I mean, who do you see vaping? Young people or old heads like me and you? Who's vaping? Kids. I mean, it just. I said,
Hmm.
do y'all can't y'all see that there's a war and assault against children in this country? There, how do we combat this and protect our children from these predators from all walks of life? It is bothering me so much, brother. And so I had to reach out and I had to tap my guy. I said, man, we're doing the right thing, bro. We are doing the right thing, no doubt. Whether we come down and agree on any political issue or not is irrelevant, bro. We are doing the right thing. Get on these mics, dust them off, and tell the doggone truth. And
And I,
hopefully, a kid somewhere, bro, picks it up in an algorithmic search and hears it.
I literally did have to dust off my mic.
Me and you both, bro.
Oh man.
Um, it's been a wild year and a half, 2 years, brother. It's been
Yeah,
something.
yeah, yeah. Um, so let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. Um, I'll speak for myself, I think that you can understand where I'm coming from. But the church played a huge role in introducing me, giving me the foundation to believe. So of course that starts
Yeah.
with my family,
Yeah.
my mother, my father,
Hmm.
grandmother,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
all had given their lives to God, and then
Hmm.
were very much a part of passing that, introducing myself and other family members, the young us kids, to
Right.
God as well. And much of that was just as simple as just taking us to church, just
Yeah.
taking us to church.
Exactly.
Not so
Yeah.
much, at home Bible studies and all that. Nothing
Right.
like that. Just
Right.
taking us to church
Right.
and living
Mhm.
through their own example, nurturing their own
Yes.
relationships with God,
Hmm.
in front of us and in private as well. And we knew that they stood for something, that they had
Hmm.
expectations that were rooted in their faith, and that was something that was just passed on to us through the natural way that those things can happen.
Yeah.
It seems that the church is different today to me.
It is.
Um, and how much of a role do you think the church has played in getting us to where we are today with this epidemic of disbelief? That's what I'll call it amongst young folk.
Well, I don't know if it's the church,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because that in and of itself implies religion and Christianity in and of itself. I think the church is still the church. I think the Bible is still the Bible. I think God is still God.
Well, let me
Uh,
say this: pastors of churches, then preachers. What
yeah,
that's what I mean.
yeah, yeah. And my
They
mom
seem
calls them
different back then,
right.
and
Well,
and
my
and
mom.
they're very different now than what they were back then.
Well, I don't know
Okay.
because back then they called them Pharisees.
Now, I mean, back
And
when I was a kid,
well, and
back when we were
Pharisees,
kids.
and
I'm not talking
right.
about from biblical
Well, yeah.
eras, but even just
Well,
you know 30
but it
years
hasn't
ago.
changed. But it hasn't changed. The Pharisees are still here. There was one preacher I heard the other day. It was a white pastor who was preaching for the physical demise of Kamala Harris, right? Praying for her death, brother. So I'm like, they're still here, and that's what I mean by kids. They don't know how to distinguish these things and to see what you see as the degradation of the clergy in so many different ways, in so many different denominations. Our kids aren't sophisticated enough to be able to see that, and then they will become how should I say disinterested and disenchanted with church because they're unable to see and distinguish as you have accurately done. You're a mature man in the walk and in the faith. So, um, but it's hard for anybody at this point, to be honest with you, bro, who haven't had a long walk like you and myself with the master. Ooh, ooh, I get shook up thinking about it, my guy. And I'm sorry that there are so many people out there that haven't had the walk that we've had with the master. Um, and and that's why we are here. Again, we are doing the right thing to help kids and anybody else that's listening to distinguish between these Pharisees of the 21st century. It hasn't changed one bit. The paying for indulgences. I mean, we can go down the list of what some of these churches are doing these days. So, I mean, I get fired up about it. And how do we help our young folk develop the maturity and the discernment to be able to detect as easily as you have yourself, brother. That's our challenge. Um, and I don't know, brother, but I know we're giving it a shot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, I got you. Yeah, for me, it's a the the preacher of today in so many ways, in so many instances, much more than it was back when I was coming up, is basically a a a, a rapper in the pulpit. And what I mean by that is, it's just he's an entertainer, and he doesn't he's not he or and even she is not about thus saith the Lord, or righteousness, that there's a heaven to gain, that there is a walk that must be walked. That's not what the message is. The message is prosperity, materialism, feeling good, not trying to live righteously.
Mm-hmm.
It's a money game in so many instances. And what we're seeing is that, well, if the leaders of our churches are basically not really leading in the way that how do I say this, when the preachers are rappers, then all you get is a bunch of groupies. You don't get people who
Right.
go home and struggle with the word, and on their knees asking for guidance and for knowledge and wisdom, understanding, so that they can live the
Yeah.
life that God wants us to live. Instead, they're praying for new cars and homes and clothes and these sorts of
Yeah.
things. And thus you're going to get the consequence of that is going to be the wages of that sort of lifestyle, that sort of thinking.
Yeah.
And of course, the wages of sin is death. And this is, in my estimation, what we see happening in our community. This epidemic of disbelief is just a slow but accelerating death. And
Mhm.
how we turn that around, I still think about that. Hopefully, our platform and just talking about these things is something that can help a little bit, but it's a huge ship that has to be turned
Yeah.
around. But I mean, I think that the church, and when I say the church, I don't mean the church in the its entirety, but church leadership, church preachers in particular,
Yeah.
in our communities. A lot of this is going to fall. They're going to have to account for a lot of this. A lot of this
No doubt.
degradation and deprivation. They're going to have to
No doubt.
account for it.
Oh
And
yes. Oh yes.
between that and the music and the entertainment,
Well,
for me,
it's
it's right
interesting.
there.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the music. I was watching the Ray Charles movie today with Jamie Foxx. I hadn't seen it before,
Oh, okay,
and
okay.
it was striking to me how black folk in that movie really despised Ray Charles for his um, fusion of R&B and Christian music,
Hmm.
and that was a huge deal. And I began to reflect. I was said, "Well, didn't um, um, God, I'm just lose his name. Um, one of the newer um, yeah, Kirk Franklin, didn't he use R&B, infused it
Hmm. Hmm.
with Christian music? So I'm not quite sure the role music has played, because music has been used on both sides of the equation. Ray Charles, for example, mixed it R&B to Christian. and then Kirk Franklin goes Christian to R&B, but you're using the same tunes. So I'm of the opinion in that regards that the omnipotence and power of God Almighty can reach through music and any other platform if we listen. Because Kurt Franklin using music the way he did, it changed, a lot of lives for a lot of young people when he did that, and I think that would be his legacy leaving. Even though we all have family issues and all that, but I think Kirk Franklin's legacy would be how he used music to help change people's lives for the better. So,
Now,
you know,
now
yeah,
I'm referring
yeah.
to secular music and the
Well,
change
yeah,
in
well,
even secular music
yeah,
from what it was
yeah.
when we were coming up. Let's say you take a teenager now, the nature of the lyrics of the music that they're listening to is very
Yeah,
different from the
yeah,
nature of the
man.
lyrics
Uh,
that we were
but the
listening
graphic,
to as
yeah, yeah, the
teenagers.
graphic nature,
And
yeah, yeah, the
and
graphic nature is uncalled for.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and music influences behavior. It influences behavior, and it
mhm,
creates culture. And so when you have this, when the popular music turns to as graphic and as negative as it
yeah,
is now,
yeah,
there's going to
yeah.
be consequences for that. It's
No
going to
doubt.
express itself in the culture. And
Yeah,
you had sent me
man.
a video earlier this week about a guy talking about the premise that
Yeah,
how did quote unquote low
yeah.
class black culture become
Hmm.
the face of black culture through
Yeah.
entertainment, etc. And
Hmm.
I took a look at that, and he made reference to an old book that I have been intended to read. I've been intending to read this
Yeah,
book for decades and never
yeah,
got around
man.
to it. But after
Yeah,
watching
yeah,
the video clip you sent, I have a new intrigue and definitely have put that on my list by
yeah,
Dr. E. Franklin
yeah.
Frazier, the Black
Yes, sir.
Bourgeoisie,
Yep.
and he highlights Dr. Frazier's work in talking about how it was an intentional ploy or just an intentional
Hmm.
money making strategy to elevate
Hmm.
the quote unquote underworld of African America, pimps, prostitutes,
Hmm.
etc., back in the 50s to the status
Hmm.
of entertainers by the
Yeah,
powers that be in entertainment
yeah,
to make for profit. And so this has been
yeah,
a long, very
yeah.
entrenched plan or just money making plan. And it's been something that's been around for a long time. And
Long
now
time.
it is absolutely out of control. It's absolutely out
Yeah.
of control. And
Hmm.
we're seeing this. We're seeing this. I think that between the change in the nature of the preaching that goes on in our churches and the lyrics in our music, the visual attitude, the attitudes, and just our entertainment, generally speaking, that a lot of
Yeah.
that is the reason why we have the problems that we have,
No
we
doubt.
being African Americans, and this
Yeah.
epidemic of disbelief and depravity is something that is very much a part of preaching
Yeah.
and popular culture. And
Yeah.
to try to change that, it does need to be called out. And I wonder
Yeah.
why, rhetorically
Yeah.
speaking, why it doesn't
Hmm.
get called out. And so if it's just going to be you and I doing that, then
Yeah.
I'm cool with that. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. I'm cool with it, brother. Yeah. And the parents and teens in the 50s also despise. Yeah, but that's a fact. It I share this with my kids all the time. You know, depravity knows no generation, no race at all. Depravity transcends time. So that is something that humans are have had to live with, and those of us who despise depravity, we try to be that group of people on this planet in our communities to try to balance this thing out. I share with my students often. We need morality in AI. Who's going to be writing morality in AI for us? And I agree. The sexy red comment there. Listen, how did it, Skip? You nailed it, bro. How did the BET Awards end up with a poll on stage? You know what I'm saying, bro? How does this happen? How does the African American community allow this to happen? We have brought the strip club to mainstream and nobody cares. And then we get P. Diddy and the rest of this nonsense. Where does a kid turn for guidance? And again, brother, we're doing the right thing. We're here. We are here for anybody that want to listen to us discuss and call this stuff out, from the Mark Robertsons to the P. Diddy's or anybody else that's standing up in front of our children and literally ripping their insides out. Where do these kids turn? We got to help our children. It's the adults that's getting in the way in helping our children.
Yeah. I want to. WG says the parents of teens in the 50s all despise what their teens listen to. And I'm not certain exactly where WG is the reason for mentioning that. I'm not sure exactly why. Don't want to put thoughts into or get inside WG's head, but I've heard that saying or something similar. Well, people felt the same way back then, or people didn't like what their kids were doing back in the 50s and the 30s, etc. And compared to today, what they were doing was relatively harmless. So why are we making a big deal out of it today? And I would say that what the people back in the 50s, they saw it coming. They knew that you have to establish boundaries and you have to fight hard for those boundaries, because the boundary is going to get pushed by the next generation. It's going to get pushed a little further by the next generation, pushed a little further by the next generation, if there is not a hard fight to keep those boundaries where they are. And so, yes, you could say, well, look, people wear mini skirts, and what's the big deal with mini skirts? People making, having a fit over mini skirts back in the 50s, and what's the big deal? It's just a mini skirt. Now that's 30 years later, or let's say the 80s, where a mini skirt's not a big deal. But who would have imagined back in the 50s what people would be wearing in 2024? It's a completely different standard. So we can't use, well, people are always going to complain about what the younger generation is doing as justification for what the younger generation is doing. We can't just say, well, complaints are always going to be with us, so therefore what's the use in fighting against it? Because the thing is that the goalpost moves, and it moves in very real ways. And so what was considered raunchy dress in the 50s is considered mild in the 80s, and is considered conservative in 2024. So, and that's something we have to deal with. But the deprivation that comes from the lowering of those standards is very real. And I'm not sure if I know what I'm trying to say, but I'm not sure if what I just said made sense. But, basically, it also reminds me of the old, marijuana. What's wrong with marijuana? Marijuana is just a plant. It's not addictive, etc. Okay, all this may be true. But what also is true, that I bet you 100% of the people that have ever done cocaine started with marijuana. And so the thing is okay, well, let's try to put some boundaries in place at the lower level to try to keep people from going over the cliff. So that's really what in my own head it makes sense, but that's really where I'm coming from with that.
Uh,
Is that no, the music that I was listening to back in the 80s, I remember when rappers had a song called Don't Curse. And with Q-Tip and Heavy D and all Boogie Down Productions, when they actually started to sense, okay, wait a minute, the profanity is starting to get more used more in these songs, and some of the biggest rappers in the day
yeah,
back in the day came together and put out
yeah,
a song called Don't Curse. And
yep,
now fast forward to 2024, and them same rappers are cussing all over the place because once it became profitable and the powers that be in the music
yep,
industry started paying for the profanity, then now it's commonplace. And of course, the kids are listening to this. It becomes a part of their vernacular and their parents' vernacular and everything. And there is a price to pay for that. There's a price to pay for that. But of course, back then, my mother, even listening to the Don't Curse song, would have said, "What? That music ain't no good," compared to what she was listening to. The Supremes and etc. She would have thought, "Wait a minute, okay, that music's a little on the cutting edge here." But for me, it was, okay, whatever. But at some point, we have to be sensible and real and say, no, actually, the line has been crossed. Okay, this is beyond a generational aesthetic argument. A line has actually been crossed where the music actually is a source of deprivation. It's not just cutting
no,
edge or a little. It's not just yeah, it's not just cutting edge anymore and kind of blurring the lines or playing with our sensibilities. It has crossed the
yeah,
line and it is hurting us.
hmm
So and
hmm
that's where we are now, and we've been there for some time now.
yeah.
In my estimation. So
So
yes,
I think
just quick
I
thoughts
think
on
you hit
that.
the well. I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. Is the I think the music and the is coming from the consumer who's asking for it. I think the entertainers are giving the consumers what they ask for. If the consumer asks for something clean, it'll be clean. So I think your original question was right. Why is it such a demand for the depravity? Why are young people so thirsty for it? Or and why is it so profitable? So it that you hear rappers will tell you all the time since I've been listening to hip hop. Oh, it's just a reflection of the community from which we live and come from. So they use their lyrics to paint the picture in the minds of consumers. Should is now for sale, and because there's so many people who want to know what it's like in those communities. So these rappers are out there telling their stories in the way they suggest that their communities exist, and then there's a market for it. See, I mean, and it looks like it's always has been. But I agree with you 100% that it's become so graphic in nature that it makes you wonder how much embellishment is in the lyrics of these entertainers now, and because the more bizarre, the more violent, the more money. Um, so uh, so so rappers, these entertainers are literally painting pictures in the minds of our young people of things they believe that they want to see and experience themselves. We laugh all the time at my school where there are kids who suggest they want from the hood and want to be hood and want to get in the hood, and you and I both know, brother, from my experience of teaching in the hood, those who
Yeah,
are
yeah,
from the hood
right,
are
right,
busy trying to get
right,
out of the hood,
right.
not get in.
Mm,
so
right.
so so I mean, because
I don't know
we've had a
about
lot
that.
of kids well, we had a lot of kids
Yeah.
that wanted out, and
Yeah,
there are a lot of
yeah,
parents
that's true. That's
that
true.
wanted their
That's true.
kids to get
That's
out.
true. That's
I
true.
mean, uh,
I would say you also had a lot that were perfectly content and thought it was the
oh,
best thing in
perfectly
the
content.
world, and a lot of that is because it's been glorified by the music and
Yeah,
by the entertainment.
and you know what? I had my neighbor. He said this to me. Let me just put this in the airspace and see what you think. And he said, um, um, "Young people today um, are afraid to change because they don't know what the change might look like. So they're content in staying where they are." Um, so it struck me when he said that. Kids are afraid to change because they are afraid of what the other side of change may look like. They're uncertain. Again, they don't believe. There's no faith there, so they are more inclined to just simply stay where they are.
Got a lot running through my head with that one.
I know, bro. Yeah, he laid that on me, man. I said,
Y-
let me just and you said some things that kind of brought it back to my head. So
yeah, I think that what kids are very hungry for, and I try to remember my own self as a child. What they're hungry for is direction and guidance,
mhm, mhm.
and that guidance may come from it. They're hungry for direction and guidance, but
Yeah,
don't have the self awareness or the experience or wisdom, however you want to phrase
yeah,
it, to be
yeah.
able to discern whether the guidance is righteous or not, whether the guidance is
Yes.
something that is worthwhile or not. They are just thirsty for guidance because they're children, and I know I'm putting that in a simple way, and there's a lot to that,
Yeah, but it's
but
the
but in
truth. Yeah.
principle, that's what it is. Children want guidance, and
Yeah.
that's why the guides are so important because
Yes.
it's and I see D Green he made a comment. I don't agree that the depravity and graphic nature is in the type of music is in demand. I believe there's been a concerted effort to create the supply for the demand to follow, and I agree with that. In that, and it hits on what I'm saying, and seeing his comment is helped me sort of frame this in that children want guidance, and if the guidance comes from a negative source, that's what they're going
Yeah.
to follow. If the guidance comes from a positive source, that's what they're going to follow. And
Hmm.
some kind of way, we have been duped into following the negative guidance and have been tricked into becoming consumers of this negative guidance through the music, through the prosperity preaching, through the graphic entertainment in all of its forms. We have been duped into wanting to consume this because we have not been guided by the proper
Right.
by the proper
Right.
by guides who are teaching righteousness. And the
Yeah.
dollar and the pursuit of profit has
Yeah.
caused this, as WG says, this race to the bottom that doesn't have any
Yes.
backstops, and it's
Hmm.
fun at the bottom, man. It's you can do whatever you want at the bottom. There's no accountability
Hmm.
at the bottom. The bottom feels good
Oh
in
no.
in all kinds of ways, but trying
Yes.
to move to the top takes effort and energy and discipline, and you have to do things that may go against your worldly and carnal instincts that seem, well, why can't I just be promiscuous? Why can't I just try this? Why can't I just try that? Why can't I just do this?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
these things right here, without the guidance to tell you, no, look, there's a righteous way to follow, and
Yeah.
there is a reason
Hmm.
for this, because the
Hmm.
consequences of the other path are going to lead you to destruction, and you don't have the sensibilities to understand that
Yeah.
sugar is going to rot your teeth out. I know it tastes good. I know it feels good. It is something that we
Yes,
love, but it is going to do more damage than good. And
yes,
if you're
yes,
not taught to resist that sugar, next thing you know, you
yeah,
have rotten teeth, you have diabetes,
exactly.
and you're going to suffer all the consequences that came with that. Meanwhile, you're thinking,
Preach.
but it tasted so good.
Yes,
And
yes,
this is
yeah, brother.
what to me
Yeah,
is a big part of the issue is that we have been tricked into being consumers of just what feels good, of the sugar, and the sugar in all of its metaphorical forms, instead of eating our vegetables and
you
and
preaching,
and
bro.
all of that healthy food that is good for us but does not have the same immediate gratifying tasteful satisfaction that sugar does. Okay, there are no more vegetables in our culture, or there's a shortage. Yeah. Where have the
I,
vegetables gone, man? So
I,
that's
I love it. I love everything you're saying. I love we understand,
oh
and
man.
this is exactly why we are here. I love BDP, KRS-One.
Yeah, D Green is
Yeah, public.
he's
That's
hitting it.
my guy.
He's hitting me
Yes,
today. He's hitting me
yeah,
today. Yep.
yeah.
Couldn't have
In
said
my
it better.
heart, it hit me in my heart, deep in my heart, and you nailed it. My mom called it, and when she was working on her PhD way back in the day, she used this term called positive ethnic reflectors, uh, and that's what's missing, bro. Positive ethnic reflectors. It was just so. Um, I don't say I don't know what the word is. Um, I don't know, but just such a relief to see a Barack Obama, for example, as the president of the United States, and the impact that had on a lot of young men at the time. Um, and it just seems to be that since his presidency has concluded, it looks like it's been an all-out assault young people, and particularly young people of color, to destroy everything good that came from that era, and we're not getting a lot of help from our own ethnic group. Um, so again, I mean, the video games, the music, all that's well and good, um, but at some point, a human being must be held accountable. Not the video games, not the music. A human being in that child's life, a responsible adult in that child's life, at some point should be the thing and person held accountable. They've been getting away with it too long. Getting away with this too long. Parents that just refuse to take accountability for their kids' behavior. And I did see in one state recently where the parent, maybe the most recent school shooting, has now been charged for the delinquency of that kid that he sent out with the automatic weapon and shot up that school. I can't remember the case specifically now. I'm sorry, but I'm sure that the father of that young man is now also incarcerated. And I've been making an argument for this for almost 30 years that parents should be held more accountable for their children's behavior, particularly in the early years of their life. Um, and maybe, just maybe, that kind of accountability can grow in this country. But for so long, we've been blaming the latchkey, the television, the internet, the video games, and all manner of things. But the common denominator are adults. We're the ones that's producing this stuff and selling it to children. So at some point, we got to call it out. Why would anybody get away with selling a child a vape cartridge? I, I don't care what the music is saying. I don't care what the video games are doing. There is an adult in a store somewhere that is selling our kids vape cartridges, and our kids are so misinformed. Some of them actually believe that they're actually smoking versus vaping. Hey, brother, they don't even know the difference. And it's grown folk doing this, taking advantage and just, I don't know, extorting our children right in front of our faces. And I don't hear the outrage anywhere else except on this channel.
And that's for me. It would be great if that was coming from the place that it's supposed to come from, if no place else, and that is the pulpits in our churches
and their homes, the
Nah,
mamas and
yeah,
daddies.
of course, of course, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, of
First,
course. You know, of
I
course.
mean,
And
you don't have to go to church to know that your kid is doing wrong.
no. Yeah, I'm with you 100% on that. What I mean is that so much of what a parent's their reference points is going. Well, let me not. I'll just say for me and for my sensibilities is that in the home that I grew up in, and my family tradition is rooted in the Christian faith, and
Mm-hmm.
so the sensibility that my grandmother had in raising my mother and my uncles and my aunt, much of that was rooted in Christian principles and Christian
Mm-hmm.
sensibilities, and where she would go and my grandfather would go and my family would go to get uh, nurturing and information and
Yeah.
guidance, and just as a part of their development, the church played a huge role in their walk. And so
Yeah.
then that gets passed on to my mother and how she raised me and my brother, very
Yeah.
much rooted in Christian principles of striving for righteousness, that there is right and there is wrong,
Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
are going to do right if I have anything to say with it, to say of it. And so
Mm-hmm.
where she would go for her nurturing and her development to help her along her way in her walk was the church. And not just the church for the sake of being inside a church, but for the message that would be coming from the pulpit, the singing that would be coming from the choirs, and just being a part
Mm-hmm.
of that community that was rooted in some sense of righteousness is what we are supposed to be striving for. And the church played a big part in nurturing in that.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say, our churches play a role in it as well, because in many instances,
Oh yeah.
the churches play a role in the development of the youth, who then become adults, who then become parents, and then they pass on those lessons to their children. It works together. It works together. And that's why I see the church playing a role in it as well.
Yeah.
I got to figure
Of
out to get
course.
this. Yeah. But just having a little technical difficulty here. But it's
Yeah.
all good though. We keep
Okay.
going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So I mean, again, I'm just so glad that we're back. Oh yeah. Yeah. In four counts. Yeah. Yeah. Um, so maybe more parents would be held accountable in that way as it happened in this particular case. It's a long time coming. There is, and I think in PG County, in reference to this point, the fines are going to carry heavier weight in the county for misbehavior and bad behavior. Whatever those citations may be, they're going to be carrying heavier fines in the county. So, but it's a crying shame, brother, that we are looking for government and other institutions outside of our homes to govern and raise our children.
No, I'm definitely
Um,
not looking
uh,
for a government. I, I
yeah,
know that's
yeah,
not
bro.
gonna.
I
I
mean,
know that's the wrong
yeah,
place to
yeah, it's
look.
not.
That's the wrong
Yeah,
place to look. Yeah.
of course, and I'm hopeful and I'm prayerful that more people can find a church that meets their needs for themselves and their children, and because they're out there. But again, just like you said, bro, if you haven't developed a walk and a discernment to distinguish between the modern day Pharisees and the kind of biblical teaching that you and I both have been exposed to, um, it is going to be difficult and it is um, disillusioning to so many people who are looking for truth to help guide themselves in their lives. It's a shame that there are so many charlatans pretending to be preachers in this country or on this planet. It's sad, and you're right. At some point, those evil people will be held accountable for their behavior at some point in time, and that's my faith and what I believe. They are going to have to pay for that. You don't mess with other folks' salvation for your own wealth and greed. There's a heavy price to pay for that, and they're going to pay for it. But I'm just hopeful that people who are looking for a good church home find a good church home because there are good homes in church. I encourage them to continue to look and search in their own hearts and minds and what it is that they expect to get from a church and pursue that and find that church that does meet your needs. And just because it says church on the front door doesn't mean that it's worth walking through. But you just have to have experience. And there are adults out there. I mean, my wife, she wasn't raised in the church. She don't mind me sharing that. Um, and but she drags me to church oftentimes. Um, so um,
Mhm.
so being raised in the church um, is a wonderful thing and a wonderful life, as we both were raised. But um, how do we get folks and teach folks and encourage folks to find the church to meet their needs? And what kind of church is that? And so we have our work cut out for us, brother. Um, to just come on here and share our stories and share our faith, and hopefully they could take these nuggets and use to find the church that they need. Because you're right, and my dad would point it out all the time that there is a difference between these things called ministries and churches, and even in our tax code, there are some distinctions between those things, and oftentimes you have a lot like we have in our news. You have entertainment religion, right? And I think that's what you're referring to, and just like this thing called entertainment news. So it just takes time for young people in the faith, and I'm not meaning young people chronologically. I'm talking young in the faith to really learn and understand and how to distinguish churches that would actually meet their needs versus don't, and not become disillusioned about church and just not go and seek truth at all. And that's my prayer. I just hope people just don't give up and suggest that church is useless today, and there are no good churches out there, and they are. And but you just have to be willing to do the work and find that church for yourself. Everywhere my wife and I have been, from Germany to LA to DC, Virginia, you name it, we've always sought a church. And we walked into some doors, brother. We were glad to be able to walk out. So,
Mhm.
but it never quenched our thirst for that place where we believe we were going to be fed the way we wanted to be.
Hmm.
So, um, it's a personal walk, and you just have to want to find the truth that you seek, and if you seek it, you'll find it.
Yeah, that the truth that people are seeking. That's
And that's a whole nother
that's the
story,
part.
right?
That's the part right
That's what
there.
we
Because it's
this
the truth,
demand for the
the quote unquote truth that a lot of people are
hmm
seeking. It's a whole lot of churches that will cater to that and to give them exactly what they need.
Oh yeah.
And that's some material, prioritized message and lifestyle promoting that faith is about what God gives you in terms of possessions or what you want him to give you
hmm
in terms of possessions and happy
Yeah,
feelings and
that's
all of
right.
this other stuff that just
Yeah,
whatever you think your need is, which you what you think your need is may be completely the opposite, and maybe
yeah.
something that you absolutely do not need, and that's part of the struggle
That's
and
the
part of the
journey.
problem for me is that there seem to be much fewer options with regard to those churches that really don't care about meeting people's needs as far as what they define them, but that will meet people's needs in terms of what God defines as our needs are. There seems to be fewer and
Right.
fewer of churches that are about God defines what's best for us and knows what's best for us.
hmm
And when you come into these doors, this is what you're going to hear. This is what you're going to be
hmm
fed, whether you like it or not. And
Right.
it seems to be a lot of churches, more than not, have bowed down to have let the temples become places for money changers, and and
hmm
that's what makes it so hard for someone who is really trying to grow sincerely in
Right.
on that path of righteousness from a
hmm
church perspective. And as don't get me wrong, the church is not the only answer, and it is not an absolute necessity to walk that journey to righteousness. It just would be
Right.
nice. It just would be very nice because what the bottom
Yeah.
line is that each of us has to nurture our own relationship with
That's
God,
right.
and
That's right.
that's your number one church is going to be the one that's in your house,
That's
and
right. That's right.
the time you spend on your knees is what's going to
That's
really
right.
make the difference. But it's
That's right.
nice when you do have a place where you can
Yeah.
fellowship with
Yeah.
others
Yeah.
in righteousness, in righteousness.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah,
hmm
yeah. But
Wonderful.
yeah,
Wonderful.
man, yeah. Anything else on
Wonderful.
your mind, man? Before we get out of here?
But we better get out of here, man. We've been on
Yeah,
two. We said it was going to
yeah,
be one.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We're coming up on 1 and 28 and 11, 13, 14. So we got about a minute. We'll make it 90 minutes. We'll make it 90
It's
minutes.
90 minutes. That's
Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
brother.
So
But it's good, man. It's good to be back. I haven't been this motivated in a long time. I'm excited to be back on the air. And I appreciate.
Digger, say the street lights been on.
This feel like been on, bro. I
You right
love
about
it.
that.
I
You
love
right
it,
about
man.
that. You
He
right
ain't
about
never
that.
lied.
Yeah, yeah,
So let
yeah,
me shut up
yeah.
before my mama break up a switch
Oh yeah,
bigger than
yeah,
anything I
yeah.
want to
Let's get
deal
on
with.
up out of here. All right, man. Well, look, hey, WG D
Yeah,
Green,
man.
thank you all. Thank you all
Love y'all
sincerely
guys.
for joining
Spread the word.
in and contributing. We going yeah, yeah, yeah. So I appreciate
Spread the
y'all and
word.
Bank.
Yeah.
Glad to be
Yeah, man.
back and
Man, I missed you, bro.
definitely yeah. Likewise, man. Likewise. So just as
Yeah.
always, just let me know what you want to talk about, and we can talk. All right. So
Let's get the word out, man.
yeah, yeah.
We on the right path. We're doing the right thing. I'll never doubt it again. That's for sure.
All right,
My man.
gotcha, man. All right, well, with that, he is Bink Ingram. I am Skip Patterson. Much love, much respect.